Hey folks, welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth. It's Rod with Powell Group, and today is Friday, October 2nd. And in today's video, we're going to discuss some news and events and some charting. We did have a fairly bearish close to the week, but in the video, we're just going to discuss, is this the end for the bull run? Should we hold over the weekend or not to hold? Basically where I think the market is going into next week and into the election. So some news and events on the list today. We did see that Trump was experiencing mild symptoms. Joe Biden tested negative. So we saw a ramp up after we sort of knew what we were dealing with and the widespread of this incident. So definitely shot up as well on the Nancy Pelosi comments about her being even more hopeful now because this changes the dynamic of the talks that they've been having for stimulus, and basically saying this is what they've been talking about all along. This is what they've been issuing warnings about, and they're going to use it to their advantage to potentially say that they need this right away. And I don't know if it's really going to happen now. I was up in the air. I thought gold. I noticed last night whenever I did the video on the news of Trump getting tested positive, I saw that gold was going up. So I knew that everybody was probably pricing in that stimulus was going to pass now for sure. But I'm not quite so sure that's going to happen, because then Trump and his administration are going to look weak and they're going to look wrong right into an election. I'm not sure that is going to play out, but we'll have to keep tabs on that this weekend. And it was a very risky hold into the weekend. So I'm personally holding short over the weekend, a little bit of MJ, which I trimmed a little bit yesterday, which I was happy. So I rebought back a little bit cheaper today to de-risk a little bit, but certainly risk off for me and most of the people in the POW community as well. So we saw that we had the jobs report for September. It came out in a slowdown in hiring. So we were expecting 800 and we saw 661, but unemployment did fall to 7.9 versus the 8.2 estimate. And just taking a look at the economic calendar, you can see that those numbers were accurate, and we're basically just teetering on the brink of a market crisis, in my opinion. This is really bad for Trump and his administration going into an election. It's just adding that much more uncertainty. I know investors and traders alike are definitely confused about the direction of the stock market, and it's not easy. It's very, very choppy right now. We saw that, and the reason why I think the $1 trillion club has been going down, and why we see weekly bear flags in Facebook, Google, Apple, and why we see head and shoulders on the weekly on Amazon and Microsoft, is because of this antitrust panel nears final steps in its investigation of Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google. So I think we're going to see some news in regards to mega cap big tech companies, and we could potentially see some antitrust laws slapped against them, and the charts tend to agree with me. So if we take a look at the Apple chart close on the weekly, you can see we closed below the 10-week moving average. The MACD and the stochastic are still trending bearish. So personally, I'm very, very heavy short. Again, trend is your friend, and I've made a lot of money shorting SPY from 358, and I'm sitting comfortably. So like I said, just de-risked a little bit when we hit 319 on SPY and reloaded. I trimmed some MJ yesterday, knowing that we could potentially see some weakness into the end of the week, and saw a huge gap down and was able to reload cheaper. So just because you're holding something doesn't mean you have to hold it. You can always, if you see a pattern, or if you see a setup that could potentially be bear or the opposite direction you're trading, you could always attempt to reload cheaper, right? So you're not necessarily selling your shares, just looking to rebuy at a later date. And taking a look at Apple on the daily, because I think Apple is the most important, and we closed below the 50-day moving average, which is a bearish sign. So we'll jump into some more individual analysis on individual tickers in just a second, but jumping into the indice review. So we'll take a look at SPY on the daily. So we do have daily consolidation underway. We did break the low of yesterday, and we were just looking for a daily higher low anyway on this move. And some people would argue that we had a daily higher low here at 331.62, but this is why we reiterate that we need more of a pivot point than that, because as you can see, we just crushed right through that support, and now we don't have any support on the daily time frame all the way down to 319, which was our previous low and daily support from back here in July, late July. So taking a look at SPY on the weekly, could we be topping out, setting a weekly lower high here? It's quite possible. We'll look to the daily time frame. So we haven't confirmed a daily downtrend yet, but we could do that going into next week. There's a gap here. I'd like to see us fill during regular trading hours at 329. So we basically filled the gap from this morning, from this morning's gap down, and then we are potentially going down. I said this in the community today. I expect that we will fill the gap on the way back up and potentially fill the gap down here at 329, and that would make these moves a lot healthier, and all gaps do get filled eventually. And looking to potentially test that going into the beginning of the week. All the headlines have seemed to have a drastic effect on the direction, so we'll continue to pay attention to that. Taking a look at the hourly chart, so we do have a little bit of a head and shoulders here forming with not the most clear, but could certainly make the argument that that is one. So if we took the measured move of that potential head and shoulders, that could put us down here to around the 326 level. And if we see some more potential bearish news, or we start to see gold sell off, there's so many different things that could happen this weekend just throughout the media and what coverage we're going to see. But we did see that the fear picked up again today. So taking a look at the fear and greed index, we can see that we are still in fear mode, and it's taking a second here to load. But moving on, we'll come back to that in just a second. So taking a look at QQQ on the daily. So we had a huge upper wick bearish reversal candle, huge sell volume. Again, that's why I highlighted Apple first thing and that antitrust panel nearing a decision and in their investigation. And we were above the 20-day moving average period. And again, we could be setting our weekly lower high here. And on SPY and QQQ, we're going to be watching the lows of 260 and 319, because if we break those, then that confirms weekly downtrends. And that'll be a significant shift in bear momentum and bull momentum into the beginning of October. And as you can see, we're starting another month in the red, and October has historically been a bad month for stocks. There's two of the worst stock market crashes in history, 1929 and 1989. And we were going up, straight up, and nothing goes up forever. And like I said, straight up for 5 months. And are you ready for a potential 3 to 5 month downside? Certainly going to be very, very chaotic the next few weeks going into the election. We could be looking at a potential head and shoulders on the weekly here on QQQ. Same thing on SPY, not as quite as clear. I'd like to see the neckline a little bit lower, but the psychology definitely is there. And taking a look at the hourly on QQQ. So we did lose the hourly uptrend, and looks like our daily lower high is set, but we would like to confirm an hourly downtrend to be absolutely sure that the daily lower high is set. But certainly, as based on the amount of this pullback, we'll just expect a daily lower high on any bounce going into that. But we are still in we still are in a daily uptrend on QQQ. So anything above 261 is a higher low. So bulls looking to form a daily higher low and potentially see continuation. But I'm skeptical. I'm not sure. They've been pinning, like I said, they've been pinning Apple and Tesla, these high flyers. QQQ has been the one strongest going through this bull market all the way from March. So now we're starting to see it shift, and could potentially be in for, again, not to instill fear, but you can see we were in a 15-minute downtrend into the end of the day. What did we do in heavy sell volume? And not good. Closed near the low of the day. Certainly going to make things interesting this weekend, and I'm looking forward to just taking a break and shutting the computer off and coming back guns blazing and well rested next week. So that was it for QQQ. Like I said, gold saw a bounce today, but likely just because of the stimulus hopes and people pricing in that now that Trump had caught it, that it was probably going to increase the odds of that bill getting passed for stimulus. But as you can see on this descending triangle on gold, could we potentially be setting the lower high here on the daily and topping out? It certainly looks that way. And we could potentially go sideways in this pattern for another 3 to 4 weeks, which lines up again perfectly with the election, and a measured move would bring us right back down here to the 1700 range, which was the last weekly high or low. So certainly going to be an interesting few weeks going. And like I said, watching, most important thing on gold for me will be that descending triangle and figuring out which way it breaks. Taking a look at the 4-hour chart. So we are in a 4-hour uptrend. So we haven't lost the 4-hour uptrend yet. So that'll be notable. When we lose the 4-hour uptrend, we'll be confident that the daily lower high is set. So all eyes on the 4-hour chart on gold. Silver, not really much to report there. I'm not sure why that isn't loading. There we go. So 40. So it was a little bit higher than that today. So we are starting to gravitate towards the fear spectrum. So we'll see what next week brings. But taking a look at some of the other sectors. So we'll just skim through them real quick on the weekly. So XLV, I know it took a beating today. Again, closed below the 10-week moving average. And what did it do on the daily? The 50 DMA, we closed well below the 50 DMA. It was 105.49. We closed at 104.16. So definitely bearish there. XBI, let's take a look at the weekly. So we closed above the 10-week moving average. XBI definitely stood out as stronger today, the biotech sector, but we did close below the 50-day moving average. XLF on the weekly closed below, so that is extremely bearish. But we didn't quite curl here on the MACD yet, so like to see that happen to have full bear confidence going into next week. And XLF tried to regain the 50, but ultimately reject there and looking to form a base of support off the 100-day. So taking a look if there's anything else, US oil and the dollar, I did want to bring those up for you real quick. So taking a look at US oil first. So we did have a 4-hour bear flag on oil that I've been watching. So basically anything under $38 is a potential weekly bear flag, a 4-hour bear flag. And you can see that we are closer to support than we are to resistance. So certainly favoring bear momentum and continuation going into the end of the day and into the weekend. But that's basically what I'm watching on oil right now. It's in an hourly downtrend, looking to potentially set a higher low and higher high to change the hourly trend. But I'm personally thinking we see decreasing bull volume, increasing sell volume, and very lackluster here into the last couple of hours. So all eyes on the 4-hour chart for US oil. Taking a look at DXY, the US dollar index. So we are looking to change the 4-hour trend. We could potentially be setting a higher low here now. Taking a look at the daily, we did have this RSI support trend line, which we did test on this sell-off. So when we hit a low of 93.53, we would have touched that support line, and now we appear to be bouncing. So we'll have to see whether or not we could be setting that daily high or low and go up for continuation, or whether or not we set a daily lower high and into an equilibrium. So that's probably what I would be looking for, is a tightening range, but we could potentially see a higher low and higher high continuation, or we could potentially see a fail and a potential downtrend. So could potentially top out anywhere here and then confirm a downtrend as well. So again, based on everything that I'm seeing, I would lean to the bear side for stocks, and I do think there's more potential upside for DXY. You can see here that we're essentially back testing the head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders neckline here. So we did back test that perfectly and bounced. So some confluence in that level, and going to be interesting to see if the bulls can pick up some momentum and gain some steam off of that. You can see we're also holding the EMA 12, trying to find a base of support there as well. So going to be super interesting, and all eyes on the time frame, the daily time frame, and whether or not we can set a higher low. How do we know that we've set that daily higher low? Not just by breaking the previous high, but we want to see a 4-hour uptrend confirmed. That will give us absolute utmost confidence that we are correct in our thesis. So that was it, I think, for the indices, some individual stocks. So again, Apple, Google, Facebook, they are still weekly bear flags, and they're starting to look even more so like one. So taking a look at Apple, we'll just clear up this chart here, or Tesla, sorry, this is Tesla. So you can see we are in a little bit of an EQ here, high, low, lower, high. A little bit more clear on the daily time frame. So high, low, lower, high, higher, low, lower, high. It looks like our lower high has been set. Inverted hammer on the daily. Starting, we closed below our, so we did have support here at, actually we do have support here at 411.60. So we did hold that, but we closed near the low of the day. Taking a look at the hourly, we did have support at, I believe it was 417. We did, and we broke right through that with increasing bear volume. So not looking good for Tesla going into the beginning of the week, and hasn't really been, it's losing steam. And like I said, I think post-split, they're trying to make it so that people can't sell. And we saw that Elon Musk even believes that the company's overvalued, and it's just not, it just doesn't have the same hype and euphoria that it did not that long ago. So again, taking a look at Apple, weekly bear flag still on watch. So if we just draw it out real quick here for you folks, you can see that we still are rejecting at the 0.32 fib. Taking a look at Amazon, we're looking at a weekly head and shoulders. Taking a look at Facebook, we're looking at a weekly bear flag. Taking a look at Goog, we're looking at a weekly bear flag, topping out, rejecting at EMA 12 resistance as well. And Microsoft, head and shoulders potential, and starting to top out, looking more and more like the tech sector is about to roll over. And like I said, I'd be watching very, very closely for any news about this. And looks like we have some breaking news. White House reveals Trump's situation and that he's fatigued, but in good spirits about everything. But again, with Boris Johnson, he was fine, and he was expected to make a full recovery. And about a week later, he ended up in the hospital on a ventilator and in the ICU. So, and he's a lot younger. I think he's only mid-50s, and Trump is mid-70s. So, and he's not exactly the skinniest dude that you'd ever meet. So we'll have to see these next 10 to 14 days during the isolation and quarantine period for Trump and his wife, the First Lady. It's going to be very, very telling, and we'll see how much negative headlines ramp up going into that next week. But taking a look at the rest of the schedule here, that's pretty much all I wanted to highlight for you folks. We did see very, very bearish closes on SPY and QQQ. So just to bring up that again, we did close below the 10-week moving average on QQQ, and QQQ on the daily. We closed below the 50-day moving average at 274.84, 274.31. Not good. Not good at all. QQQ, like I said, we're crossing bearish on both MACD and stochastic. Taking a look at SPY one last time, 334.85, closed below that. Actually, we closed just above 330. No, sorry, that was 333.88. We needed 334.85, so that is a fail. We are essentially rejecting. That is still resistance, and we are seeing bearish crosses here in these indicators again. And SPY on the daily time frame closed below the 50-day moving average at 334.60. 333.84 was the close. Looks like it wants to head down to 320 again at the 319 support and test that 100-day moving average. So again, we closed above the 50-day, we closed below the 50-day moving average. We closed below the simple 10-week simple moving average. It's not looking good. And that's, I believe, the third time in a row that's happened on SPY. It's, yeah, 1, 2, 3. So it's happened 3 times now. They usually say 3 strikes, you're out. And potentially we see the real move next week. Maybe a lot of hedge funds or whales were caught off guard by this news. And today was just, you know, the choppiness that we saw today could have just potentially been them unloading and getting prepared for the real move down going into next week. But I personally think there's a lot more downside to be had. And I'm holding some cash. I'm holding a little bit of MJ. I'm short QQQ and SPY. And like I said, we'll check back in at the beginning of the week for another daily market recap. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. It's been a long week. Thanks for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care, guys.